Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Pixel. I'm your host, Max Roberts, and this is an interview show over on ModelCitizensMedia.com where I pick the brains of different people in the video game industry, get their origin stories, and see what they're all about and where they're going. This week with me, or not this week, it's not a weekly show, but with me this time, I've got Yacht Club Games, and specifically, I've got Nick Wozniak and Ian Flood.
Hello.
Hi there.
In case you're wondering, the voices are that I'm Nick Wozniak, and that is...
I'm Ian Flood.
Yeah, so in case we start talking and it's a whirlwind of words.
It'll all collide.
You can kind of track it.
All three voices in a whirlwind of audio.
Yeah. That's sort of like what we're doing anyway. One massive mind.
Talking over each other really quickly.
Yeah.
And that is the way podcasting works.
Magic.
If anyone is not familiar, Yacht Club Games are the creators of Shovel Knight and also the new expansions Plague of Shadows and more recently Specter of Torment. It's this 8-bit NES-inspired game where you either bounce on a shovel, grind on a scythe, or throw bomb potions all over the place. And it's a pretty magical chunk of games, if I do say so myself.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
I love them. But so today, on this episode, what I wanted to do was start out. I wanted to go back to March 14th, 2013, when you guys actually launched the Kickstarter. Shovel Knight was a Kickstarter game funded by fans all around the world, and
it's like 1 billion years ago.
It feels like 1 billion years ago, especially with all the expansions, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But at least when I see Kickstarters, Kickstarters are pretty good at being transparent, at least up front when they're getting the funding and things. And I think very good ones also are transparent through the development process. But at least I haven't heard a lot about how Kickstarters come about and what it's like pushing that button to set it live. So what was it like launching the Kickstarter almost 4 years ago?
Well,
it's scary.
It's scary because, even for that website that is the Kickstarter to be live, that's a tremendous amount of preparation, planning, and work. And so it wasn't like, I guess, as somebody on the other side of the website, you're seeing it as this idea never existed before today, and now it's up and running. But of course, in every instance, we're thinking about it for months and weeks leading up to it, planning, moving around the numbers, trying to proofread it and see if the game idea has any legs. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, we were Shovel Knight existed as a concept for about a month and a half, maybe.
Well, kind of. We just uncovered some old emails where we were going back and forth, and it was the day after Christmas when we're all right, let's actually figure out how to make Shovel Knight a Kickstarter. And I think that was one of the first correspondences about Shovel Knight.
December 26th. It's from Sean, our director. He's okay, guys, we need to start doing the following. 1, we need real email addresses. We can't just be I can't keep emailing all your rando addresses. 2, we need to figure out how many levels this game is going to have. 3, is it really going to be 8-bit? We should talk about this. Yeah. 4, and it's just a call to action. Remember, if we're going to launch this in, February, then we need to make sure we get this all figured out now. And of course, we launched in March.
Yeah, a month later.
and so it's very indicative of the whole kerfuffle. And then all the way up to even the launching of it. We actually have a video. I don't have it on me, but Sean took a camera phone video when we're all sitting there at our desks. It's okay, we're gonna push the button. It's everyone ready? We're gonna go live. We're gonna go live. And then press the button. Everyone's yay! And it's okay, get back to work. We have a lot to do. And we all turn our desks around and continue what we are already doing. It's it wasn't a big let's take the day off. Let's all meet up at 8, and then we're push the button live, and then what happens. It was we were already working pretty regularly around the clock.
Yeah.
And then the website was we were ready to push the button. Kickstarter already reviewed it and said it was okay. We pressed the button, and then I turned my chair around and opened went back to the IDE I was using, and Woz probably had his Pixel program open, and we were all it was business as usual.
My favorite part about that though was you press the button, the publish button, right, and then it goes, and so everybody's working up to that moment, and you click the button, and then it gives you a confirmation page.
Oh, yeah.
So everybody's and then wait, here it goes again,
and write the word Kickstarter in full caps to confirm that you're actually launching a project.
Yeah, so you hold your breath, and then you get this weird little respite, and then you have to hold your breath again and then do it again. Right. But yeah, that was a pretty fun night.
So then 5 days later into the Kickstarter, you guys announced Wii U and 3DS ports for the game.
That's right.
How did that deal come about? How did you guys get Nintendo on board 5 days later into the Kickstarter?
It wasn't. It was 5 days later when we heard back that it was okay to do. Yeah. We already had some ideas in motion, and so obviously PC would happen without anyone's approval. No one needs to ordain a PC executable, and obviously this game would have a big. We wanted to get on Nintendo platforms because this is it's like a natural fit. This is where you might go to play games of this kind, and so it seemed like a slam dunk. But we didn't want to get ahead of ourselves and just announce something that we couldn't actually confirm or commit to.
Yeah, so we had to wait for official word from Nintendo.
Right. We reached out and we were printing banners to take to PAX, and the banners have the big character there, and then the logo at the top, and at the bottom we had a bunch of the platforms we're aiming for, and so it had PC and Steam, and I think Mac and Linux were on there, and then we had the Wii U and 3DS logo, and we had it taped over with black tape before we went there because we weren't sure if it would be okay, and we didn't want to get ahead of ourselves and show those two logos.
Yeah, everything was happening.
Luckily, that day, the day you see that article is the day we got that email.
Yeah,
it's oh my god, they responded. They said it's fine, and we'll just have to fill out some paperwork and stuff. I don't know, we didn't read that part, and so we're good. Write up the article, rip that tape off that banner, we're going to PAX, and so that's what it was. Actually a pretty. It was a tremendous day to get that word back.
What is it like emailing and waiting for a response from Nintendo that you can put your game on their stuff?
Oh, that whole month was basically that feeling of what's going to happen? I don't know what's going to happen.
For various things, not just Nintendo. It's just I hope our new bank account gets set up. I hope our new cards get work.
I hope we get funded.
I hope we can all afford to fly to Boston to go to PAX. And so that was just one of the.
I hope we have a booth.
We didn't have a booth until the very a week or something beforehand, and we weren't sure if we were going to have the final build or if we were just going to have our booth was going to be couches and Mario 64 set up.
Yeah, when we were making the demo, we're look, let's make a great first level of Shovel Knight, and if we can't make a level of Shovel Knight, let's just bring a Nintendo 64 and some couches and bean bags, and let's just set that up and play that at the booth. So so I guess it wasn't really the Nintendo. We weren't there tapping our fingers. I guess what it sounds like to me, the more we recount it, is there was so much stuff going on that it was all just a bunch of things we needed to check off, and a bunch of things we didn't want to say ahead of time unless we knew for sure it was happening. But we were able to get into direct contact with them at Nintendo, and so we were able to have a very human conversation about it. Hey, here's the game, here's what we're aiming for, and they were able to direct us and help us out, which was a great help.
That's pretty sweet because I ended up playing it on 3DS first. That was
great.
It was a road trip game. It came out right in time for this big road trip. I was all right, Colin Moriarty says it's an okay game. Let's do it.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I'm really happy we were able to be there. Day one on the 3DS. Those are both platforms, the Wii U and 3DS, that we were all familiar with here. I mean, I worked on launch day titles for both of those systems, and so we knew what the hardware, working with the hardware, was going to be like. It's just we weren't aware of starting our own thing and company, how that would all work.
Yeah.
It's we needed dev kits, but we didn't have an office yet, and so it was very much there was several carts before a horse walked by.
Yeah. So
then, just a few days later, 16 days after launch, you guys met your funding goal. You were funded. Mm-hmm. And then, so maybe we should start there. Just how did that feel to see that it crossed that threshold of being funded?
Well, it was great. It was great knowing that it was successful and good. I think we went to PAX and it was
not funded at PAX. It was 60%.
Yeah.
So we were dead tired, with flyers barking at anyone who would walk by to check out the game, and the game was still not a confirmed thing.
Yeah, and that's more than halfway through the 30-day campaign. You run it for 30 days, you have your limit, your goal, and at that point we're just hoping that we can get it done and get people excited about it enough to fund it.
and it was really stressful. But like it was also just a very busy time, so our days were all filled with doing things. And once we finished PAX, we decided when we got back to do daily updates, and so we would have something on the webpage every day for you to come and look at, whether it was a boss reveal. You know, we didn't reveal who all the characters were at first. We kind of had them shadowed out, and so you could like guess at who they were based on their silhouette. And so like, you know, every couple of days was a boss reveal. Every couple of days was like some art contest or some thing that we were talking about, or like showing off parts of the game. I don't remember all the specific updates.
We also started like responding to comments directly, just to like try and get out there with people. Like Woz, you had a huge effort to do.
I was doing that in the airport.
Yeah, like, you know, responding to all emails, Twitter, and any questions from anyone, just to show that we're there and like we're trying to listen to what everyone's saying. And so that was a lot of like, that was a level of interaction we weren't used to, but it's something like we all like sat down and started taking care of it, just because we wanted to like be responsive for people. That also meant like streaming. We like the demo that we brought to PAX, we like gave that to a few to like, you know, people we met at PAX to stream and record and to make videos and episodes of. And so all of it kind of like really started coming to life once we got back from PAX like that. And then once it was funded, it was really much like launching the page. It's like, hey, we launched. Okay, get to work. This was like, hey, it funded. Okay, but like we got to keep doing what we're doing because like we can't stop here. Like,
let's make stretch goals.
We're not done.
Promise a bunch of stuff that's going to take us forever to do. And
I guess that's kind of like the whole story of Shovel Knight. It's like even when we ship it, it's like Specter of Torment's done. You guys are probably like taking it easy. It's like, no, we're starting on battle mode. No, King Knight like needs to come together. And so every time we like reach a major milestone, like we're immediately thinking about just what's next and what we need to work on next, like all parts.
And you just brought it up. My next point was those stretch goals. And I always find in any Kickstarter, I think stretch goals are sometimes they're like almost, they seem like copy and paste from other Kickstarters. I feel like game Kickstarters specifically have similar stretch goals, but I'm always curious how those come about. How'd you come up with the stretch goals that you created for Shovel Knight?
We copied and pasted from some other Kickstarters.
We had a big list and then we kind of whittled it down.
I mean, there are some that like obviously there are some that very much come from Shovel Knight. Like we have the playable campaigns and body swap mode and like challenge mode and things like that. Those are features that I think we would like to see. That would like seem like a fun idea. That's like, oh yeah, that would be really cool if it was in the game. But we definitely like took a look at what other companies and other projects were doing, because these are this is what the Kickstarter community is used to seeing. This is what the video game playing community is used to seeing. And so we wanted to make sure that we weren't delivering something that's just like foreign and out there. It was very much I don't know. It's like just like brainstorming any other feature in the game. It's like, hey, you know, Shovel Knight needs 5 sets of armor that do different things. What should they be? And then we'll say like 30 of them and pare it down. The same thing happened for stretch goals. It's like, what are some other like areas of the game we could expand upon and think about in different ways? And the features that came to be.
I think a lot of it also, like, you know, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but looking at other Kickstarters wasn't just a thing that we did for stretch goals. We kind of like, we didn't really know what we were doing, and so we were looking at other Kickstarters throughout the whole process, even from the beginning. You know, we looked at like the ones I can remember us looking at were like Delver's Drop and like Cry More, and there's a couple others that were like successful at the time, and that whole thing is just like us all working 7 days a week, all 5 of us at the time, just trying to figure things out. And so stretch goals was like another thing to figure out. And
even after having like, once the campaign came to a close, we received emails from other people who are looking into Kickstarters, and they were asking us like, hey, could you give us any tips? Hey, like, you know, we want to do something similar. What should we do? And so I don't know. That's just like a level of support and community that everyone's like trying to strive for. Like we did our best to provide as much context and information. It's like, yeah, we did this, but like nobody really cared about an art contest, or we did a bunch of work for this whole stretch goal, and you know, we probably could have like that's probably like more than enough, just how it was, kind of a thing.
Those daily updates and stuff kind of sound like the dojo back in the Brawl days. Like,
right.
Like just a daily update and being in touch with the community. And you guys were even more hands-on because it wasn't like, I want to say Iwata, but that wasn't him.
Yeah, I mean, we would see like recurring people. Like, there was one guy named Johnny Vila, and he would come in every day and ask for a physical box of the game. And in one of the stretch goals, it was like, "Hey, we're gonna do a physical box, just the box, just for Johnny Vila." And that was a call out in our update. So we kind of got to know, and he loved it. Yeah. We kind of got to know the people that were like posting a lot and regularly in the chat.
Much like the Smash Dojos, because I don't know if you've ever heard about the post-mortems for those. They talked about that. Those were that's like if you messed up on the project, you were sentenced to dojo duty. And it's like if I delivered my milestone late, I was in charge of like screenshots for that week. And so that means like after work, I had to come in and take like screenshots of Ike, like in different poses of like getting cake items so that they can use it like in the dojo. And that's like immensely stressful because I'm sure, like I'm just speculating here, if your job is to take screenshots of Smash Brothers while it's revealing content, you have to make sure you're not showing things that aren't ready yet. Like Diddy Kong's foot can't be in that photo if Diddy Kong's not announced yet. And also you like need to show the right levels and like all these interesting like combinations of things, and so much like that, putting out updates like those are like there's a lot of work involved. Everybody
always has eyes on them,
right? We always like we start in like a Google document, we write up all the text, and then we start like moving it around and fluffing it up and making sure that like things are clear and we're not being too wordy, and when we use images when we need it. And so that's like something we kind of developed just by chance. But it's like something that the entire team is on. Same thing goes that we've carried that style forward on our website. Whenever we write an article explaining a feature,
we still use that same Google Doc.
We
started way back when.
Called, the update scratch of forever. And so it's like a 500,000 page document now.
You don't scroll down because it goes on forever.
And so that writing that copy, that's like something that it's just something we had to do as a team, and so we tackled it and completed it as a team.
Mm-hmm. You should print out that Google Doc and publish it as a book someday.
Once we have to redact a few things, I'm sure. I'd have to look at it.
Oh my gosh, that would be crazy. So, in line with stretch goals, I was looking at the list and stuff, and I'm curious, what was the $325,000 stretch goal? The next goal that would have been made if you guys kept going.
We reached all stretch goals.
We didn't have an idea. The joke idea
was battle mode.
Was butt mode.
Oh,
that was like a thing. Instead of like the last day, we were getting we reached 300, and that was like a really big surprise for us. And we hadn't had plans beyond that. Mm-hmm. And then the last day, we're doing our stream, and it's like a 24-hour stream, and people are tired. And then someone asks like, "What's our next stretch goal?" And we hadn't hit 300 yet, and someone said butt mode, and then it became a joke for the rest of the stream. So there wasn't really a plan for.
There wasn't a plan.
So seriously though, the like battle mode was like, we'll never, like, we're not going to do a battle mode. It's like, it would be cool, and like, don't get me wrong, and we'll like, let's see if we can put it in the stretch goals, but that wasn't something like we wanted to make a single player game, and battle mode sounds really cool. And so that was like near the end of the stretch goal tiers, like, okay, this character in battle mode. And then the final stretch goal, I think at the max 300,000 was all characters in battle mode. Yeah. And so upon reaching that, like, we elected like not to generate like 10 more stretch goals because, we had our plate pretty full already. Like our stretch goal choices on this project is something that we're still like, that's a thing we're dealing with even today. And so that's
long
something
after the people have forgotten that they actually are stretch goals.
Right. And so that's like, in the future, that's something we would be mindful of to make sure that, we're not committing to anything that's like too crazy far down the road, unless like that's something people will be excited about. But I think people are excited about these character campaigns. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we're putting in all the effort we can to make them even better than people expect.
Well, we're going to get to that in a minute, because especially Specter of Torment, because good gracious, what a game. But kind of back to the butt mode, which did end up in the game as a cheat. Pretty notorious and pretty hilarious. Specter of Torment has a cheat that is basically Jar Jar Binks. Where did that? Who's responsible for that idea?
That was released in a previous patch, but it didn't reach all the versions yet. But I think we prepared that for April 4th, months ago, like back during Plague of Shadows.
Oh wow, yeah.
Because it was. we were joking that like one of the characters, like Percy, would be the game's Jar Jar Binks. It's like this is like an affable and like helpful character, but like Plague Knight hates him. But he shows up like more than you would expect him to. Yeah. And so we joked about it. It's like, oh yeah, Percy's like the Jar Jar Binks of this game. It's like, no, people are gonna love Percy. People are gonna love Percy.
Yeah.
And so I think at that point, David got it in his head to try the text replacement with just all the characters in the game because he was on a Star Wars kick, and that's how it came to be, I think.
Yeah, that kind of text replacement is like really, it's always really fun and effective. It makes me kind of think of the, in Chrono Cross, you'd find the mermaid lady, and like she'd say the same things as everybody else, but she had little umlauts over her vowels. So it was like, I don't know, it's along the same lines of just like adding some flavor and having fun with it, but not taking it too seriously.
Yeah, because that's pretty darn great. So whoever came up with that, big pat on the back to them, because that's pretty hilarious.
We pat everybody on the back.
Yeah. So
George Lucas in the back.
Kind of transitioning away from the Kickstarter, the game launched, and in the first month you guys sold a total, including backers, 180,000 units. First month. Yeah. Big thumbs up. Props to you guys. And then later on, in April 1st of 2016, you guys reported that 1.2 million units of Shovel Knight have sold, and that was a year ago now.
Right.
So those are some pretty big numbers. And so how do you guys feel about the numbers and the reception of the game?
I mean, I'm excited every day when I check our inbox and Twitter just to see people like playing the game and enjoying it. It's especially cool now because like every time we release for a new system, like the most recent Switch release, that's like another chance for somebody to decide to find like, okay, I'm finally going to play Shovel Knight. Yeah. And so to know like I'll get a photo or like a screenshot of the ending campfire scene with Shovel Knight and Shield Knight, and someone's like, I just beat this and I wasn't expecting this like this kind of ending, and I love this game now. And so it's cool that like people are still playing it, and whether like they're speed running it every weekend or like, you know, they finally gave it a shot. It's cool just to see people like experience it like by itself and to be excited.
My favorite thing I think is the fan art that we're getting and seeing just like the amount of love that certain people have for it. There's a guy on Twitter or girl, I'm not sure, whose name is Sachi, Sachy, mm-hmm. and all of their stuff is like so good. They just like do all these like different scenarios of Plague and Mona, or like, you know, like Specter Knight and Propeller Knight being all cutesy, and it's like every illustration that they do is like really, 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 really good. And it just makes me love the fact that like people are playing it, and I think they're Japanese too, so like it's like people across the world. So I just love that people are playing it and enjoying it and creating derivative works even of it. Yeah, I just love all that.
Yeah, especially now because we've this most recent release brought in new languages. Because we added Russian and Brazilian Portuguese over the summer, and now that's finally on consoles. It's cool. Like it's cool that we get support emails in like all these different languages. Not
even if we can't read them.
not like, hey, help me with my like System32 folder, but like I have to auto translate it, and they're saying like, hey, I just like, sorry, I don't know English, but I just really like the game, and I just want to let you know like I had fun playing it.
Yeah, that's
really
cool.
It's like so really, really cool just to be a part of that.
That's awesome. I don't even really think of how far the game has reached. I do remember when 8.4 is it 8.4 Play? They translated it for Japanese. I remember that.
Yeah.
But the game really is kind of gone global. And I wanted to then ask you, kind of to bring it to current day, you guys did just release Specter Torment on Switch back in the beginning of March, and then it just came out on PC and Mac and Steam and stuff. And now, sometime during this month, when you guys figure out from, I believe, the console holders like Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo, but Specter of Torment is launching across all the platforms by the end of the month. So how does it feel coming off of the launch, even though you guys are headstrong into King Knight and battle mode?
I mean, if you ask Ian, like he's very much into it.
The launch isn't over, like it never is. Because, like even with these builds out the door, there are still like we want to release standalone Shovel Knight, standalone Plague Knight, and so there is still like testing, coding, and like submission paperwork happening around the clock, and so it never truly is over. But it is great seeing like it is great, like hearing everyone's thoughts and feedback on Specter Night, because for every character campaign, we try to set out in a different direction. It's like, Plague of Shadows, like let's make it more technical, or Specter of Torment, it's like let's make it more about like a flow and like technique. And so to see people respond to that and see like, it's like, oh, I like Plague Knight better because I like all the options, or I like Specter Knight better because I like his storyline is cooler to me.
It's like really easy to be a cool guy when I play Specter Knight, and I love being a cool guy.
And so it's just it helps to know that it's like out there and people are enjoying it and playing it.
So
yeah, I think it's also, well, I mean, as far as what Ian was saying, like he's in the midst of the submissions. A couple of us are also like.
That's why I shouldn't do interviews. Like, stop asking about this. It's gonna be fine.
No, a couple of us are able to like think about the next thing, and like I kind of mentioned before we started recording that we're thinking about the King Knight campaign and like what that actually is going to look like, and the structure of the gameplay, and what the actual game loop is, and it's cool to. It's kind of weird because you like starting over. Not from scratch, definitely, but like starting over from way pre-production side of things. It's really a bizarre thing because like when you're in the midst of developing a game, all you're thinking about is exactly the details of the game, and so you just focus on like I just got to finish the hub. I just got to animate this character.
Specter Knight has 9 levels. You've talked to like 10 characters, and we know that's to be the case, and we're going to finish it.
Yeah, and that's how games are right now. Like you can't imagine making a game any other way. And then when you start over and you're like, we can make this game any way we want. And it's like, okay, well, wait, hold on. My brain is like, it's like still recovering from the sprint that was Specter Knight. I have to like, recover and like come back and be a game developer again. So what is pre-production like? And then we all ask ourselves, like, how do we do a schedule? And then someone says, I think you start at the end, right? And you work your way backwards. And someone else is like, yeah, I guess. And so it's sort of a weird like getting back into the pre-production phase for some of us, but I mean it'll work out. It's just like a weird time.
So do you guys then, is your goal to have it totally done by the end of 2017? Like King Knight and Battle Mode, I believe, are all that's left. That
would be our goal, yeah. Like it's possible that maybe we finish development this year and it actually releases like a little bit into the next. But generally, yeah, we are trying to size up what's ahead of us for this year.
So then, is King Knight going to be more in line with something like Plague of Shadows or Specter of Torment? Where Plague of Shadows, I feel like, was character-wise and movement-wise completely different than Shovel Knight, but level-wise it was like tweaks here and there and like new areas that you could explore that were only accessible by him.
I mean, these are the questions we're asking ourselves.
Yeah.
We want to make sure every campaign we talk about, like for Plague Knight, it was like, well, what could be here that would be fun for people playing it a second time? And for Specter Knight, it's like, what would be here that would be fun for people playing it a third time? And so that's what kind of drove us to make the levels all unique for Specter Knight. And so for King Knight, like, I don't know, does he like use Specter Knight stages because maybe you aren't sick of those yet, or maybe like maybe King Knight's mobility like lends himself to he needs his own stages. Like that's the kind of stuff we're talking through every day here, and because it really could go like we really do have a lot of options in terms of what we can do.
Yeah, and we talk about we'll try to explore what that idea means, and so we'll like list out the idea and kind of think about, well, if it's just going to be the same levels, like what does that mean to the actual gameplay? Is like how do we make the gameplay work with this new character and like in the same level structure? And you kind of go down those paths and figure out which one works best. And sometimes you go down a path and it takes a long time, and then you realize that maybe we should start over and do something else. But yeah, it's definitely a process to work through.
I do remember, I don't have the specific day written down, but maybe last year you guys did tweet out like a GIF of King Knight moving and stuff, and that got me all excited. Was that just you guys messing around, experimenting? Because that seems...
I mean, well, back then the goal was like every time we're trying to take what we learned and apply it moving forward. And so for Shovel Knight, we wanted just to make Shovel Knight. And so we didn't worry about the alternate campaigns outside of like making sure we didn't code ourselves into a circle. It's like, we're going to talk about Shovel Knight. We're only talking about Shovel Knight, and we're going to make that the best game we possibly can. Plague Knight, we're like, okay, now that Shovel Knight, like the door is closed on that, it's shipped and it's done. Like, let's reopen the game for Plague Knight. And we realized that that was like a large and arduous process, just because like resetting your brain and doing all that stuff could be like, that's like half the work is just getting started sometimes. And so for Specter and King Knight, we did work on them a little bit in parallel alongside battle mode. And so like we took some time to like make sure Specter Knight was in a good spot, at like a good jumping off point in terms of his mobility and like where his campaign would head. And then we did the same for King Knight, and we did the same even for battle mode. We have like some playable battle mode stuff that's like really coming along. And then it's like, okay, with these ideas set in place for King Knight, we're going to like put it away and like revisit it after Specter Knight. But now that that time has happened, like we do need to open it up and see. And, you know, anything from the smallest idea to like the biggest story point could be that it's like, okay, now that like we've seen how players treat something similar in Specter Knight, we like definitely shouldn't do that. Or like, oh, like in retrospect, this is like not going to turn out. Or, you know, this is going to take too much time for like very little benefit. Or this is a great idea and we should like focus more on this part, or like this character, like this story stuff is solid, but we need more like side elements to like make it even stronger. Like it's just a matter of like reopening it and like checking it out. So that actual GIF that you saw, I don't know, like it's possible that he could do all those actions exactly as you see them now.
Or it's possible he could do none of them.
Or like the way he executes them like changes. Like now he has to press. It's like, oh, he was using a power up, or like that's a special item that uses magic, whereas before the player just used it out of nowhere. Like this is all stuff that we see as pretty malleable, and like we approach it as such.
Yeah, originally Plague Knight, you know, we brought Plague Knight to PAX, and he was collecting a bunch of reagents, and he had a HUD that had just a bunch of items that he was collecting, and the idea was that he was going to craft his bombs after the things that he was destroying, and we showed that off. We showed off everything except for the crafting part. We just wanted to show off his core mobility, and then later we decided that that was like not the way to go, and we kind of ditched that whole crafting thing, but like the mobility stayed the same. And so people who played it at PAX played a weird version where items were dropping everywhere, and then people who played it later got to play the final version. Like the HUD is totally different. They're changing their bombs on the fly without having to worry about resources, and we make changes like that all the time. So it's very likely that, you know, that, I mean, either scenario could be, you know, that King Knight looks just like that, or it looks nothing like that. And then also, I think that GIF was made with temp art, so that's not even a final gameplay show off at that point.
So then, what is it like developing, I guess, in the public eye or so openly? You guys you always put out these really detailed posts on your website. You post GIFs like that. You've even streamed like pixel art and like making levels and stuff before. What is that like as opposed to closed doors, develop it inside a little hut and then you just throw it out?
I think the more openness was one of the things that we actually like. Well, that was one of the starting points for starting the company itself.
A conscious decision.
Yeah, like we wanted to be more engaged with people who were looking at the game and enjoying it. You know, we came from somewhere where we just like would finish a game and send it to the publisher, and then they would tell us the release date, and then, you know, we'd forget about it and notice that one day it was out. And like that level of like interaction with the people that are playing your game, just like it seemed really lacking, and it was a huge bummer. Yeah. And so we wanted to be engaged with the people, and that's, I mean, I think the Kickstarter really helped start that, but
Kickstarted it.
But it definitely continued based on like our love of it, and you know, I'll do the pixel streams every now and then, and I love doing that because I get to like it's not like it's a show. It's just people watching me work. Like I play the music that I want to listen to, and like everybody, and like a lot of people complain about it, and it doesn't matter. Like it's just you're watching my screen basically, and it's fun to like go in the chat and interact and stuff, but it's something that like we want to engage like from the very beginning. And then as far as like, we'll do dev streams too, but we'll also do like fun streams where we just play games. We've done less and less stuff lately just because like we've considered more things spoilery and stuff now that we have more people watching the game, but I want to get back to the point where we're doing streams.
We always go back and forth. It's like a pendulum swinging. it's like, well, we should just tell everyone what we're working on all the time, and like, what does it matter? Like if you care enough to watch it, then you're not going to care when you play it because you're invested in other parts of the game. And then when we start getting near the end of the project, well, we can't show the final boss, we can't show this music, and we can't like tell this like anyone what this character is called, like their name. And then like once the project's over, it's like, oh, that was dumb. We should have like shared more stuff. It wouldn't have affected anything. And so that's just like constantly balancing the vibe of it.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what's going to happen with King Knight. We'll see.
Yeah.
So, kind of a part of that openness, and you recently here with Specter of Torment, you announced that kind of the model of Shovel Knight as far as sales are going to go is shifting. You guys announced Shovel Knight Treasure Trove, which is it will be all 4 expansions in battle mode for, I believe it's $24.99. Or people could buy it piecemeal, where you could buy just Shovel Knight Shovel of Hope, which is the original game, or you could buy Specter of Torment or Play Your Shadows or whatever King Knight's campaign will be called. How was that a decision made out of trying to stick to your Kickstarter promise of it's free for people that bought this game? Like, is that where that model came from?
I mean, that's one of the reasons. I would say like one of the biggest reasons is that nobody knew these updates existed.
Yeah.
And so that was like first and foremost the most. I'm okay with like I have a certain amount of okayness for working on something for free and releasing it if everyone enjoys it. But instead, we're working on it for free and no one played it or knew about it.
Yeah.
And so like if you played Plague of Shadows at home, or if you're excited for Specter of Torment, like I'm excited to hear about that, and so that's great. But for a lot of other people, they have no idea they exist, and that's due to a limitation of how a lot of storefronts are organized right now and how distribution of updates work. It's a little sad, but just like for trying to do something like this on a digital storefront of your choosing. There's plenty of ways to announce big DLC that's like $9 for costumes. There are no hooks to announce updates that are free and add anything to the game.
Even if they add like a whole new game's worth of content.
Right. Like there's no like major option on the storefront for like, hey, we just added a new campaign. Like, and it's free, just like if you already own it, play it, or if you're like thinking about buying it, now's a good time. Instead, it's kind of the opposite, which is if we resurfaced the Shovel Knight box, you would think, that game came out 2 years ago. It should be like 99% off in the store. Like I want to buy it for a penny. It's like, well, no, we just doubled its value.
We've been working on it for a year.
Right? We added two new campaigns to an existing campaign. It's like, yeah, okay, so a penny. And so it's like very odd just trying to get with that. And different storefronts are better equipped for that. Like Steam obviously is more geared towards like letting people know about updates and things like that. Mm-hmm. But for us, it's like you go to that store page and you look at Shovel Knight and you nothing changed. It's like it doesn't say there's a new campaign. It doesn't say there's like a new character. As far as you know, that like $14.99 game that released is like still what's up there on the shop, and you have exactly the same level of interest.
Yeah, so it helps a lot to split it up and have different icons on the store and have different entries, and so you see, and it also helps set the expectations for what that content's going to be. If you think you see an update, you're not necessarily thinking, oh, this is going to be like a whole new story.
I hope they fix that crash with Noctis or something like that. You're thinking like if you see the game update, you're like, okay, yeah, they fixed like a Dolby surround problem or something,
right?
And so this is like that refresh and calling it something different and changing. Like we're going through and changing like the box and icons and covers so that all the characters are on there. And so even if your PS4 like hasn't been turned on in a while, you might like click past the Shovel Knight icon and see it's all new and be like, whoa, what's going on with Shovel Knight? Like somebody put new characters in here. And that's like a big part of it. In addition to like we're adding all these substantial like new characters to the game, and so like we retitled the original Shovel Knight campaign to have a subtitle. It's called Shovel of Hope. And so now I already see it. Like if you're discussing the game on like Reddit or something, you'll say like, "Hey, I'm playing Shovel of Hope and I'm stuck at Mole Knight. What do I do?" And people can say like, "Use the Chaos Orb, Shovel Knight," as opposed to like, "Hey, I'm playing original Shovel Knight as Shovel Knight in the Shovel Knight campaign," and everyone's like, "Yeah, we get it. You're playing Shovel Knight. Great." So it's just like trying to build upon like what we built already, just so that it's more structured and people know how to talk about it. At the same time, like the reason we are releasing these standalone games is so that like right now you might want to play a game on a different system just because it's like you picked up Shovel Knight on 3DS way back when, but now like you're really into the PS4 or the Steam version. And so by releasing that standalone, we would hope somebody would just try out a new campaign by itself, or it's like you just want the co-op Shovel Knight campaign because you're playing at a friend's house and you don't want to pay like for an entire bundle of single player content on this system. And so this is a more, I don't know, this seemed like a clearer way to kind of provide more options for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I never even thought of it like that, which I guess is why I asked the question. But all this new content and way to put it on the store and stuff and promote it and share it and all that stuff. Totally lost my train of thought again. This is the second time this has happened on the show too. I like it. The train just leaves the station as I'm running to the door.
When I start talking about rebranding the games into Treasure Trove, everyone starts dispersing anyway. So this is pretty par for the course, I suppose.
Well, I do. I guess my ear is so close to the ground that I'm like, every time you guys say, here's a new thing, I'm always about it and stuff. But I never thought of people not actually knowing that Plague of Shadows exists or Specter of Torment exists.
It's a hard thing. I think we looked at the stats and the Steam stats of, you can see who have gotten the victory achievement, right?
And for defeating the final boss's Plague Knight.
Yeah, so you can see like who finished Shovel Knight and who finished Plague Knight. And then the amount of people that finished Plague Knight was 6% of the people that had finished Shovel Knight.
Less than, I thought it was 4.
Okay, yeah.
But like below 5.
It's like very, very, very low.
Yeah.
And so we took that really to heart. We thought, okay, there's a couple things that's probably, factoring into that. It's visibility is like a huge one. It's hard to know that this is a whole new thing that you should like turn your system on again and like play Shovel Knight again. And 2, we also considered maybe Plague Knight's a little bit too hard, and it's like really hard to do just the business of being Plague Knight. And so maybe we can figure out the mechanics to be a little bit more easy. And that was one of the driving factors to going forward with Specter Knight, is to make him like you can be awesome and rad as soon as as early as possible. So you're climbing on walls, you're dashing through enemies, and there's like the tone is more feeding into like his character. And so we took that a lot into making Specter Knight. So yeah, like we definitely like we look at the sales, and it's more than just like looking at the numbers. We want to make sure that like we're communicating what we're doing really well to everybody who wants to enjoy Shovel Knight.
Well, I can tell you that Specter Knight was definitely dope. You felt pretty sweet. He was pretty darn cool. But
I agree.
It's awesome. So another thing that Yacht Club did that maybe falls under the can, you could tell me maybe many people don't know about it. You guys also published a game that's not Shovel Knight. Is it Azure Striker Gunvolt Striker Pack? That first word just meant Striker Pack.
That's right. Yeah, that's Azure Striker Gunvolt Striker Pack, which includes Gunvolt 1 and 2. I'm just going to say Gunvolt from short from here on out.
Works for me.
That's a game. It's developed by Inti Creates. That's a developer that is known for like the Mega Man Zero series throughout all of the Game Boy Advance era.
Mega Man 9 and 10.
Mega Man 9 and 10. And so that's a team that's very much close to our hearts in terms of like the kinds of games we like to make and play.
Blaster Master Zero?
And Blaster Master Zero most recently on the Switch and 3DS. Yeah. And so like that's a team that has like pixel chops and skills. And so when they came to us with the opportunity, we like our eyes lit up. We were very excited to jump in on that.
Yeah, we mostly helped with just bringing the game to stores and bringing it out here.
Right.
We didn't really do much as far as like the development of it.
Right.
It's like publishing it. It's like the same way like Xseed might bring over like a DS title.
Yeah, and we did it because like we like what they do and we like them as a company, and it helps like if we could just like do what we can as a Yacht Club to help bring more attention to that game. It's like that's all the better. And we got a little like amiibo tie-in with the Shovel Knight boss battle in there too.
Yes, if you scan the Shovel Knight amiibo in Gunvolt 2 on eShop or cartridge, then you fight Shovel Knight in 16 bits. And so that was a fun project to be a part of, especially like we figured out our pipeline for submitting and getting a 3DS game on the shelf for Shovel Knight a few months prior. And so at that point, like the beltway was already set up to like make a game and get a game on shelves. And so continuing like using that knowledge that we already knew to help somebody else do the same just seemed like a natural fit.
Yeah, getting a game to physically in stores is really hard, and it's not because people don't want to do it that it doesn't get done very often. It's because there's a lot of people involved and there's a lot of steps. And so, I mean, fortunately we had the context needed to do it, and we were able to help that process along. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that we talk to that are like, man, I just wish I could have my game, other developers, I just wish I could have my game physically in stores. And it's just a big process involving like almost archaic methods of selling things. You have the stores and they have like inventory and back inventory, and it's like this whole process and world of selling things that is sort of totally foreign to someone who's like me, who's more used to digital purchasing. But yeah, breaking into that is something that we were able to help with.
So then will people start seeing Yacht Club's name on more games that they didn't necessarily develop? Do you guys think that you will dual as both a developer and a publisher? Is that something you're interested in?
It's definitely something we'd be continued to be interested in.
Yeah.
It's certainly a possibility. It wasn't a one-time gig, but it's not something we're like actively seeking out. Like I don't think we'll have a catalog of like 10 games that aren't ours in the next year.
Yeah, our goal isn't to like become a big giant publisher company, and there's a lot of examples, I guess, but our goal is mostly just to like help games get good and out there and recognized.
Yeah.
And so
it's very much a case by case basis.
Yeah, exactly.
If like the timing works and the idea works, then like we're open to talk about it for sure.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to have a whole Yacht Club Games line, but
yeah, I mean we're only 11 people. We don't have plans to grow to more than 20 or 25. So it's hard to explain what that means, but basically it's just like the amount of people that would need to like actually have a whole line of games and be a publisher. It sort of just becomes outside of what we want our core strengths to be.
Primarily development.
Which is primarily in the development of video games.
Gotcha. So then the question I think I've always kind of been curious about with Yacht Club, watching you guys put out these campaigns and 3-4 years later, if you guys were ever to do Kickstarter again, how would you approach stretch goals differently? And if so, how would you go about that then?
Not having them?
I mean, I think we would take the same way we said earlier on in today's show, we mentioned that we were looking at Kickstarters when ours went live, and like that, Kickstarters and games and interactions and things like that with fans alike, fans and customers alike, like that's something that's constantly evolving, right? And so we would also just the same take a look at like what current projects are doing, like what like the current like ebb and flow of that kind of thing is, and like we would base our decisions around that primarily, and then we would like add all the stuff we definitely want to put in ourselves or like not put in.
Yeah, I mean the biggest thing is that we don't want to overpromise and sort of throw ourselves in the corner.
Right.
The reason why we would go with Kickstarter if we were to do it again, I think, is because it's really hard to replace the level of attention and hyper-focused hype that you can create
just interaction
during a Kickstarter. I mean, yeah, it's like you're engaging with your 10,000, 15,000 followers on a daily basis, and it's like even when you have Twitter and you have your 20,000 Twitter followers, they might read what you say, but like when you do a Kickstarter, everybody's like waiting for you to post that day, and then when you post a thing, there's like 100 responses, and you respond to as many as you can, and
it's like an etiquette. It's like a communal thing. If we put the same pitch exactly on our website for a new game, it's like Yacht Club / second game, and it's like a big like explanation, and then every week we post like a big new update. We would probably like no one would care. Yeah. And it's like, okay, let me know when game's done, and maybe like a few people would like take interest.
That's kind of interesting. It's like until someone puts money into it, and this is sort of like a theme we've been talking about. Until like there's an opportunity to put money down for something, it's like hard to value it. And so like the Kickstarter is really good at that, because it's like, hey, you can pay for you can give us however much money you want to see that this game happens, and then once you do that, like once you've put down $30 to make a game happen, or some people have put down like $1,000. then you're that much more involved, and you've actually put skin in the game, and to a certain extent, like, you have invested into it.
Well, it's also helpful for us just from a pitch standpoint.
Oh yeah,
it's like, hey, if we do this all on our own website, and like, who cares? Like, it's just like letting information get out there. It's like, hey, let's write up everything that the game is. It's like, well, we're not explaining like level structure and like what the content is or why the story is there yet. It's really just a bunch of GIFs of like motion, and it's like, well, yeah, but we'll like add those in the next couple of months. Like, we'll tell people like what the gameplay is. But looking at it as like a big launched like page like on Kickstarter or something similar, it's very much a like, what's missing? Like, are people going to understand it? Like, is it concise? Is like the video getting everything across? It's like it's like a polished pitch.
And when you miss something and you didn't notice it, they'll tell you.
People will definitely ask if you just completely leave out like how world map works or something like that. And so I think that would still be beneficial for us to like consider as an option.
But I think it wouldn't be like a do or die situation. It's hard. It's hard because Kickstarter is like, it's for funding, but it's also like this hype machine. So I think we would probably use it in a more limited capacity and not, bet the whole farm on the Kickstarter. But it's definitely something that we're considering.
With stretch goals in particular, though, I think we've made a pretty strong case for how far we're willing to go on an update. And so I wouldn't drop it entirely. Like, I wouldn't say like, it's like, just cut it off here, but maybe like one or two things like, hey, we're making a new game. And so like maybe as a stretch goal, we'll like add a new playable character and that's it. Or like two new things. And I think if you were following what Yacht Club has done in the past, you would probably think like, I know what it's like when Yacht Club adds a playable character. That's like a big deal.
But there's a reason why that's like $300,000 down the line.
Whereas previously on Shovel Knight, it's like we didn't even know the full extent of what adding a new character would be. We just knew we wanted to make it like really good. And so I think we'd have like a better ability to like set expectations in terms of why like maybe we're doing like a fewer number, but like with better like more clarity of what it will be like or more trust in what it'll turn out like.
So that in the same vein, I think then in Edge magazine, you guys there was an article about making Shovel Knight in Edge magazine over in Europe, and they kind of described your stretch goal stuff as you go above and beyond what any backer could have reasonably expected. How do you take into account these built up fan expectations that you've built up as you do King Knight and you may go into your next game? Like, how do you take into account those?
I mean, it's usually our own expectations, I would say, just as much. I mean, we definitely like we're being aware of the promises we made in like small parts. It's like, okay, we told people you're going to play as Specter Knight, so we want to make sure that that's not like a slap in the face to anyone. We're like, hey, it's Specter Knight's like totally lame adventure, and like sad like off-key music plays, and he like goes to the store to buy milk. It's like that. If we went intentionally against the grain, that would like cause some issues like that. But it's also like just we've been thinking of these characters in this world, so we're more like often talking about what like we would like to see and what we imagined when we talked about like making this character playable way back when. It's like, well, if the boss works like this, like it would be a shame if you couldn't like fly or if you couldn't like teleport or throw your scythe. And so we try to like weave that into the flow of it. And at the same time, we are we make sure, like I was saying earlier, it's like, what's a player who's playing this 3 times going to think? What's a player what is the player who's been waiting for King Knight's campaign only and ignored all the other campaigns, even Shovel Knight, and like, what are they going to think? And like, what are their expectations for how the character acts? And like, what would be the big payoffs for like playing as that character? And yeah, so I guess it's just something that we're constantly talking about, just like expectation for these like ideas.
Yeah, Ian's right. It is mostly comes down to like what we're willing to compromise on, and usually it's not a lot. We try to make sure that the game is something that's exciting to talk about. Like one of the marks for us is just like, how do can I get behind this and chill this at a convention? Can I like talk about this excitedly? Because it's really hard for us to be genuine and like not be excited for something but pretend we are. So like one of the things that we've just been, or most of the time it comes down to whether or not the gameplay is something that we're excited about.
Right. Are we excited about this? Is that exciting for us? Because if so, we can get other people excited for it as well.
Exactly.
It's easier to get excited and push your energy behind something if you actually like it too.
Yeah, totally.
I think that's kind of where that comes from, because you're doing a pretty good job so far.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the greatest parts about Kickstarter in general. It's like it's giving life to these projects that normally maybe wouldn't have existed. And so it's like, hey, I'm excited to do this, and everyone's like, okay, we're excited to see it happen.
Yeah,
so,
like
enthusiasm has to show.
Ukulele launched today on the day we're recording, and that was another really big Kickstarter campaign.
Absolutely, and like a revival, return to form for a genre that like maybe like people were waxing nostalgic for.
Yeah, it's a shared enthusiasm that resulted in a real final product. That's really cool, and I think that's one of the cool things about Kickstarter in general is that you can just have a bunch of people who are all excited for one thing, catalyzed around this one campaign, and
one
everybody...
overly stressed out team.
Yeah, the poor
game
team.
happens somehow.
and also Shovel Knight's in ukulele.
Yeah, that's right. So,
yeah,
that's that's just part of the collaborative effort that everyone's putting in, just like talking with one another, sharing ideas. Like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if Shovel Knight was in ukulele?
And Shovel Knight gets such good feeling.
We immediately jumped up saying, yes, it would be very cool. What do we have to do to do that?
And they did, and they really, really went all out. And like he's in the first level, and like when you expand the first level, like the mechanic of the game is you're finding pages to expand the books, and the books are the levels. So like once you get your first expansion of the first level, Shovel Knight's there, and you can just talk to him, and he has a little mission, and he sounds exactly like Sean Velasco, our game director, because he did the voice for it, and it's
so cool. It looks
he's
so
right
good.
there. It's really cool.
Seeing him just in that 3D world.
Yeah, and then when you press pause, Ian pointed out, when you press pause, the little heads of the characters are all randomly chosen for the menu prompts, and so randomly Shovel Knight will just be in your menu, and you have nothing to say about it. It's awesome.
Does that give you guys any ideas for maybe a Shovel Knight 64? Wink, wink.
I mean, the games that gave us ideas for Shovel Knight 64 were Mario 64. Like we've been wanting to make.
We're already ready and willing for sure. But yeah, I think if that's something we tackle, that'll probably be a little ways out still, as we need to get our tech up and running and our ideas all out.
It's a whole different engine, different beast.
That would be a big undertaking, but it's a big undertaking that we're really ready to
definitely
bite one day.
That kind of leads into my next question. I'd be upset at myself if I didn't ask you when I had you here. What's next for Yacht Club post Treasure Night? When you have it all wrapped up and said and done, do you guys throwing around ideas? Are you in?
Yeah, we're. After King Night, and Battle Mode, we're thinking about what kind of genres we'd love to do next, or what kind of game we've been itching to make and or play ourselves.
Yeah, I think one of the things we look to is Nintendo in their heyday. They started with Mario, and everybody loved Mario, and then they had two other games. They had Zelda, and then they had Metroid. And so if you love Nintendo, you could really get on board with these really big there's three very different titles, but you were able to love all of them. And so we're taking the same thing to heart, and we have Shovel Knight, but let's make a new thing. It's a new IP. It'll be bigger than Shovel Knight, or people sometimes people will say I think Shovel Knight's cool, but I love this other thing more. And so our goal is to make this next thing just as big or bigger than Shovel Knight, and we're kind of starting on it right now, and it's very much in the early stages of planning and ideas, but hopefully we can talk more about that in the coming years.
You guys did last year. You guys put out a poll through Twitter, and it was anyone could partake in it to kind of see what you guys wanted to do next. And there were there were a bunch of different games and different scales of not excited to super excited. I was actually kind of bummed to see Shovel Kart in the not excited. I think a kart racer.
Oh, yeah. I know, it's so polarizing, right?
I was like, darn it.
People really have a crystallized idea for what a karting game would be, and so it's very much fives or ones, but nothing in the middle, because it's no, or hey, I liked Crash Team Racing.
Man, it would be it would be so cool to have an adventure racing game like Diddy Kong or Crash Team Racing.
I think it would.
Even if we don't make it, I want somebody else to make that. Maybe that's what Playtonic can do next.
Make a kart racer.
But yeah, I mean that's why it was helpful to do that poll, because we'd be equally excited on all these.
We had so many people respond to that. I think there were like 30,000 people that responded.
At least 10,000 bots.
That was 30K votes later. Bayonetta 1 was the tweet.
Yeah, we really have no idea how many of those were bots,
but like, because we saw some genres, like the game types that had wide appeal, like something broad like a Mario or a Zelda, those got like nice even votes where like people had different levels of thinking and thought and nuance. But then for like an RPG or a Mario Kart, it was very binary. It's like 5 or 1. Yeah. It's like, I'm not touching. Like, if you guys do a menu in RPG, I'm like not there. I'm not happy. And so it was very instructive just to see like people have strong feelings about these genres, and like probably just wouldn't touch something like that if it was so far off in that direction.
The top one was Metroidvania, right?
The top three results were Shovel Knight 2, a Zelda, and a Metroid. The numbers I don't have specifically. I'm just looking at the bar graphs. I don't.
Yeah, and that's like most evenly, like most excited in general.
Right.
And so it was funny because even I think it's like RPG was very binary, but then like a Paper Mario or Super Mario RPG was like a little more like scattered. Like people are like, wait, what does that mean? Exactly. And so it was cool. I don't know. It's very helpful to see what people's like gut responses are for different types of genres and game ideas, even though like, we wrote at the top of that poll, it's like, these are, of course, like, we're not cloning Metroid or cloning Zelda. Yeah. These are like, this is like a jumping off point for like what style of game you would like most be excited about, just like at a base level. And so it's like, even if we started off with cart, like shovel cart, I imagine if we worked on it and embellished it, it would be like, fairly far from like what you probably would expect from like a kart racer.
Yeah, and it was mostly about like we talked about before, transparency and us getting to know our fans. Like, we want to know what people are thinking. Like, we actually care like what the actual response of people playing our game is. And
if everyone said 1 on everything except Shovel Knight 2, it would have been like, whoop, okay,
that's weird.
We better like stop having those other ideas, because Shovel Knight 2 is like really like way better of an indicator. And then, like, we probably would have had, like, a pretty big discussion about that. It's like, nobody wants us to make anything else. So, like, we should consider putting Shovel Knight, like, in a tennis court or, like, on a car. Like, we should make Shovel Knight go to places that we want to, rather than go to places where Shovel Knight isn't.
While I have you guys here listening to me, a Metroid type game would be really great, especially since there hasn't really been one lately.
That would be, I mean, that's something we talk about like a fair amount. Even if we never made a Metroid, we would still continue to discuss making a Metroid for a long time.
On a side note, if you want to play a really good Metroid, you should totally play Environmental Station Alpha.
That's true.
I love that game.
And
I've been trying to evangelize it to the people here at work, but like I've gifted it to people and they're still not playing it.
I've done that with Shovel Knight. I've gifted it to people. I'm like, you guys have to play this game, and they won't buy it, and so I have to buy it for them.
Thank you. Thank you for taking that effort.
But yeah,
Environmental Station Alpha. I do want to play it.
Not Space Station Alpha. That's different.
Right.
Environmental Station Alpha.
Okay.
It's really good. Okay. It's really, really good.
I'll try it.
I will look into that.
But it's good.
Right.
So I had 2 more questions for you. One, I didn't really know where to fit into the structure, so I'm just going to throw it in the end because I was a huge proponent of this. Shovel Knight's got a ton of cameos in a bunch of different games. Mutant Muds, Gunvolt, Ukulele, Rumbo, which I always pick him in Rumbo. But anyway.
Nice. Good.
You think he'd be the slowest, but he's one of the. But he keeps up with the pack.
He's so rare.
He's great. There was a time when a big certain game was coming around saying you can vote on the next character, and everyone it was Smash Brothers for Wii U, and I don't know about you, but I thought a lot of people said Shovel Knight. How did you guys feel, at least just about people saying, like, we want your character in this huge franchise? Like, how did that feel?
I was excited for it.
Yeah.
I love the idea of him being in Smash Brothers, and like the fact that like people were like voting and the polls were really strong for him was like really encouraging for us.
I mean, I think the lobbying for his vote part is weird. Like the like, we need to like keep Bandana D down, and like Shovel Knight's gonna take it. Like, any vote not for Shovel Knight is like an enemy's vote.
I mean, that's why you never saw
that part was really odd. But I do enjoy like it's like Smash Brothers is such a toy box of like really finely honed mobility and like characters and animation and like iconic moves, that to think that somebody would look at all of those, that like excellent like crystal representation of like pure gameplay fun and think like, oh, I know one character that's missing from there, and I think it's Shovel Knight. That's that's a tremendously like humbling thing that somebody would
the best
have
is
that
seeing
connection.
The best is seeing when people actually like thought out what his moves would be, and like they actually worked out. Like it was like his tilt A would be like this, and his his up tilt would be this, and it's like we have tons of examples of this, but like there's a couple in particular that I like really read through, and like they're really detailed, and people put a lot of thought into it.
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna get together the 5 arranged tracks I think his stage would have.
Yeah, totally.
And it's like awesome. That's
I would never have thought
cool
of his music tracks, but like that's the thing that you think about when you're super into the Smash scene.
Yeah.
So it was great. That poll was cool just to like have people ideas of like what they could do, and I personally never thought that it would result in anything. Like I think that like in my own estimation, Nintendo already knew what the characters were going to be before the poll went out. But
I also think like in our estimations, like any character, you can think of many characters that would get more votes than Shovel Knight. Totally. It's like because there are characters way larger than Shovel Knight in the video game.
I think Goku was toward the top.
Exactly, yeah. He's just like in general, there's just like a lot of like big personalities in the universe, and so like we can't compete with like I don't think we probably didn't even compete with Snake coming back. Like just because that's like a big character that already is like very much burned into people's minds when they think of Smash Brothers and when they think of like a cool like random character. But on the plus side, we got Cloud, and that's crazy cool.
Yeah. We're still waiting for that Cloud amiibo.
Oh yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
Cloud and Bayonetta.
Put it right next to my Shovel Knight amiibo, which is.
They have to make sure it doesn't contain any like residue of Mako poisoning before it goes out into the world.
That's what it is.
Yeah, you got to make sure it's like it needs certifications. That's all. The ink and if he has real glowing eyes, that could be a problem.
Bayonetta's outfit is all actual hair.
Yeah, that's very possible.
The weight of that sword, it's real metal.
Weirdly real hair Cloud.
Maybe if they
the sword could be off balancing. Yeah, they never thought about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Maybe if they port Smash 4, just make a new one for Switch, Shovel Knight can dig his way in there.
Yeah. Let us know if that works out.
Yeah,
like we have no idea.
If he's in there, you should email us because we definitely would like to know before it happens, just so we can get good at him.
Yeah, so you can get the upper hand.
I wanted if he's in there, I want to play. I'm going to play online every day for 2 hours, just to show people who's boss. And the answer is not me.
The people will hold you to that. And so to wrap the show up, what I'm trying to do at the end of each episode is just ask the people I have if they would be willing to share a piece of advice for anyone listening that, in your guys' case, may want to launch a Kickstarter or make a game, or just any type of advice that you have for anyone listening, since you guys have experience doing this kind of stuff.
Sure, yeah. I'll take a stab at that. Make lots of games. Don't try to make one game that's your perfect game forever. This goes for like kickstarting. This goes for like working at home, just like learning the ins and outs. Like you probably never heard of Yacht Club before Shovel Knight, or any of us here in any major way, but we were like making lots of games. And so like whether that's like at school as a project, or like at a previous company, or like, for a company that you didn't hear of because the game like wasn't marketed. And so that like backlog of information is helpful because we're not only are we like gaining skills, like learning what works, or like when we go too far, or when like a feature isn't fully thought out, but it also makes sure that like when we're thinking about a project, we're trying to like think about the features that would make this game the best, and not make this like the best game that we've ever made. A lot of times when I hear like somebody it's like, hey, I'm like just learning programming, and like my end goal is to make like a Metroidvania MMO game, and like I have a GDD that's like 500 pages long, and like the systems and characters are all locked in. All I need is like the tech ability. That's like getting really far ahead of yourself. Instead, like, how about make Pac-Man? How about make like a tennis game? Yeah. How about make like a platforming game where there's an end of a stage that you see on the same screen, and then like keep building on those skills, keep like trying new things. Like sometimes building a game that's already existing, like a Block Breaker or a Pac-Man or something like that, something that you already know what its final form can be, can help you like judge yourself in terms of like what values are important to you. It's like you could play any platforming game, but until you try to make one, you might not understand like some of the underlying systems, like, oh, there's like a hit stop when like the character stops here, or like, oh, the flag collision works like this, I wonder why that is, until like you start getting in there and work on it. And so I would say like make lots of games and be prepared to like move on from project to project. That's my general advice.
I guess mine sort of similar and feeds into it. Mine is basically like there's no such thing as a good idea. There are ideas, and some of them are interesting to think about. But I would say like even Shovel Knight's not a good idea, right?
What? Like this interview is over.
The idea of what Shovel Knight is not good. It's only good when you execute on it and you iterate and you spend time changing it and you spend time developing it. Shovel Knight was like, if you look at Shovel Knight before it was released, a few months before even, it was like not fun. There are huge chunks that were just bad. And it's not because we were bad at our jobs, it's because we had to like work through the ideas. And so sort of like what Ian is saying is like do a lot of things. Yeah, like you have ideas but like don't get super married to one. You can work on a GDD for 7 years and have it result in a game that is terrible, and that's all because you like believe in the idea too much. It's all about the idea is almost worthless. So like have a good team and have like an idea that you guys can get behind, but make sure that when you execute on it, that's like the thing that is valued.
Well, and also just to build upon that, a bad idea or like a bad starting point can make it harder to come to a good execution of an idea.
Right.
Like I wouldn't say there's no value in having a well thought out plan.
No.
And I would also say like having a direction is good, because you can't like as a team or even just as one person working alone, if you're like setting out to make an action platformer where like key button presses are important, don't lose sight of that based on iteration. Like you have to make sure to stay like heading in that direction.
Yeah, I guess like directed iteration makes more sense. Like it's you are thinking about it from, you have core concepts and core like things you're trying to hit, but like the idea is not going to inform that. Like usually the ideas that you hear are very loose and like very story based, and I've heard a lot of people say like my idea is to make a really like a Metroidvania MMO. That's like, that's not really an idea. That's a framework for something that could happen.
That's like 3 years of a team's life.
Yeah. What the idea is to like, I have a bunch of people who like know how to make games and have a good vocabulary of making games, and we're going to get together and like figure out how to make this concept work. And maybe it doesn't work, maybe we start over, whatever, but like the team is the important thing. So I guess like ideas aren't as valuable to me as the execution behind them.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Thanks for joining me and doing this with me.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for
having us.
So this has been an episode of Behind the Pixel. It's a product of Model Citizens Media. You can go check us out over modelcitizensmedia.com. Follow us on Twitter at ModelPods. I am Max Roberts. You can follow me on Twitter at MaxTheWhite. And Yacht Club Games is at Yacht Club Games on Twitter. You can go to their website, Yacht Club Games, and buy all their copies of Shovel Knight and Plague of Shadows and play it everywhere.
Let's go.
Do you guys want to throw out your guys' Twitter handles or actually promote or bump anything here at the end that I may have missed?
Well, I guess Shovel Knight, Specter of Torment is out on Switch and Steam right now, and in the coming month it'll be out on everything. If you want to follow me, you can follow at NORKWOZ at Norkwoz, and I'll do pixel streams every now and then if you want to see that.
And you can follow me at Ian M. Flood, IANMFLOOD, if you want. I don't use it too much though. And as far as like something to check out, you should check out Ukulele and support what Playtonic's up to today, because it's a tremendous, exciting day for them for this game to be out in the wild.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, guys, for joining me. I had a great time. It was a pleasure. And until next time, until King Knight.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. See you.
Thanks, Max.